So we are now shifting from a macro level perspective of affordable housing community development to a micro level. And I asked Joe Barden to come up. Joe Barden from Margaret Community Corporation. He's the board treasurer of the coalition. Have to plug the board. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Jessica, and good morning, everybody. Good morning. I was asked to give a 15-minute presentation this morning as a counterpoint to yesterday morning's presentation about the early years of the Neighborhood Preservation Program. And I know that some in this room will get very nervous about that because my staff will tell you I can barely say hello in 15 minutes. But I promise you I'll get through this very quickly, and we'll get back to our networking, which is what this conference is all about, and into some of the very important workshops which are very useful. But before I start, I just want to say thanks very much to Lisa Davis for that beautiful keynote speech. It was almost the perfect primer on how to write a winning grant application. And I hope everybody was taking notes. Thank you very much. I know that I was taking notes. I'm not going to ask for the show of hands because I know the answers. Those of us who are in here are either directors or workers in the community service field, and I know that we all need more funding, and we all need to know how to access that funding and how to write proper and winning grants. And if you listen to Lisa, you're going to be much more successful in that effort. So I certainly took notes on that too. I would also like to thank Jessica for setting us up here at PACE. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It's been a very exciting innovation for me, for Jessica to bring the coalition conferences onto university campuses. There is a vitality, there's an excitement in these venues that certainly energizes me. I don't know if it does anything for anybody else, but it certainly does it for me. If you were not here yesterday morning, you missed a wonderful opportunity. And yesterday for lunch, we had opportunities to network extensively with senior representatives in the state legislature, as well as with the commissioner of HCR and the president of OCR, Matthew Nelson. And it was a wonderful opportunity, and I appreciate that very much. So, to move into the counterpoint, yesterday we were talking about how the program started 35 years ago with 50 groups and $500,000 at $10,000 apiece. Now, we're jumping to 2012. Something like, I think yesterday, those of us who were here, I don't want to repeat it, but gas was like 49 cents a gallon. Today it's $3.99. I guess that's nationwide because I paid $4.80 a gallon to fill my tank of gas on my way to the conference yesterday. So it is insane. An average cost for a new home in 2012, $273,000. Well, I don't know where they're buying homes at that average cost, but they're not doing it in New York City, and they're not doing it in Long Island or Westchester, and maybe in some parts of upstate. They're going to get a nice piece of real estate for that, but you're not going to get much of a home for that kind of money, certainly not in Queens County where we were. Right now there are 140 MPCs located throughout the state. I would like to say that nearly each and every county and every area that meets the criteria for funding under the Neighborhood Preservation Program through the state legislation is covered by a neighborhood preservation company, but unfortunately that's not true. We need more money to fund this program, and we need other modifications or improvements to the program to help us expand our service territory and to drive our funding up to levels where we can successfully address these issues within our neighborhoods. And HCR appears to be committed to that, or they said so yesterday, and they will be having a meeting in a couple of weeks to discuss the future of the program and how we're going to move forward, and how we're going to get where we need to get. We also had a very strong advocate from the state Senate, the chair of the Senate Housing Committee, Catherine Young. She joined us via video yesterday, and a key representative of hers was here yesterday to show her support, and we're hoping that that will translate to a bipartisan support for the program throughout the state, and avoid this constant year after year demoralizing and self-defeating struggle after struggle after struggle for funding each and every year. It's just wearing us all down, and it's time to change that. And we may have some people who are committed to doing that. I want to thank those in this room today from DHCR who have been instrumental in moving that forward. And they know who they are, so I need to point them out. They're here for that. Especially those from our regional office in New York City. In the last reporting period to the state legislature, our MPCs in New York State, and remember each group got 58 and change last year, count, times that by 147, I don't know what you get. I'm not very good at math. But what we did is, with that money, we leveraged $438 million in our communities. Now, you have to remember something key here, too. This was, the last report we submitted was a post-ARA report. The year prior to that, when we had some ARA money, like weatherization in our agency, weatherization is a funny program. And it's a funny program because it's run within HCR, but it's not run under OCR. But the DOE regulations for weatherization do not allow a weatherization subgrantee to either look backwards or to look forward. So it's up to the MPP section of an agency or the MPP in the community to either bring the buildings in on the front end through either tenants or owners, and to follow through on the back end that these owners are honoring their commitments under their weatherization agreements to their tenants, to the programs, and to the state dollars that we put in. And that gets very important when you talk about how we leverage or match and do all that sort of thing. I think that the MPC put on a great workshop to discuss how to do a proper APR, annual performance report, last month, and that is a critical report. To all those MPCs here, I encourage you to take advantage of that report. I use it each and every year simply as a tool for myself, as an executive director for my board of directors, to really portray a picture of our agency, of how well we've done in every given year. So everything that we've done and everything that has come through our books, every dollar, goes into that APR at the end of the year. Not all of that is matched, some of it's leveraged. But if you have a $300,000 grant for the home program, you have a little bit of admin there as an admin match, you have some non-admin money, and then you might have 10 homes, mortgages at $300,000 a piece. You have you've leveraged $3 million in the community. I'm not going to get into all that stuff because everybody here should know how that's done. But if you don't, please get in touch with the Neighborhood Preservation Coalition for technical assistance, because this type of reporting is getting more and more important. Let's not just look at the dollars that HCR gives us through the NPP when you're doing your report. When you give your report, go for those leverage dollars and make sure you're giving the greatest picture to them of the biggest bang for their buck that they're getting, because many of our agencies are leveraging, it used to be $15, $25 per dollar. In the last couple of years, 75, 100. During the hour period, we have Margaret in South Queens, Far Rockaway, we're leveraging over $200 for every dollar that HCR gave us through the MPP. And we could not do that without the NPP because it's our core administrative budget. There are 3 categories of assistance that we're able to provide, or activities that are eligible under the Neighborhood Preservation Program. Everybody in this room should be familiar with those. Property rehab and construction, client services, and community renewal. This is really interesting. We've tweaked this a couple of times. We went through a couple of a review and reform process a few years back. I think it was taken very seriously by the senior executives at DHCR at the time. I think a lot of that is translated into the integration into HCR, and I'm very hopeful that when we come out of the next couple of months and the next meetings with HCR, that we're going to even drill down and improve on this much better. We need to get recognition for the services that we provide. And they've allowed us to do that, whether it's within our service territory or outside of our service territory. They've also given us a lot of flexibility. It doesn't show on the report that you're filling in. So you need to have this technical assistance about how to fill in your report properly. You know, there's pigeonholes, you know, on these report forms, and then there's all these services that you provided that don't appear to fit within them, but they do. And there's a way to do that. And if you need assistance with that, please see Jessica and call the Coalition for technical assistance with that. Property rehab and construction, Lisa referred to that, how difficult that's getting. We encountered a lot of problems with tax credit buildings and with the limited partners and the investors trying to do weatherization under ARA, you know, and afraid of their tax implications and how it was going to affect their return at the end of the year. It was a very difficult barrier to break down. We finally did, thank God, and we're trying to move forward with tax credit projects. We have one incubating right now for a small 30-unit building. We hope to be able to get an application into whether it's on the current funding round or whether it's through the Housing Trust Fund Corporation to get that going. We're also an LPA, as many groups probably in this room are, for programs like Restore, Senior Citizen Emergency Repair Program, or for Access to Home, where we do modifications for folks with physical disabilities. We do accessibility modifications, and weatherization and other types of property rehab and construction. New construction, we work with New York City Housing Partnership in New York City. Those on Long Island must work with the Long Island Housing Partnership. Some groups do their own development, whether it's multifamily or single-family home, either through home or any of the other programs that are available. Client services, this is really where it's all about. This is where it all began, at least for our agency. It's been often ignored by HCR. It's been often been denigrated and designated as a soft service. You know, well, I don't know what's soft about preventing somebody from being evicted from their apartment. You know? I don't know how you classify preventing a family from losing their home to foreclosure as a soft service. You know, these are critically important and vital services, and the tenant organizing we do, and the code violation removals, and all of these critical things that we do, the core services that the neighborhood preservation programs provide, especially if they're HUD-approved housing counseling agencies, you know, are critical. It's not always about the brick and mortar. HCR, you know, used to count units. How many units did you build? Not many people, not how many people did you help, what did you say? That has changed over the last 20 years, thank God, and much more attention has been paid to the client services that we provide, and of course for the community renewal activities we engage in. Now the community renewal activities are kind of interesting. Lisa referenced them in relation to strategic planning, and she also set forth, I think, a pretty practical template that would be very useful for each and every one of us in approaching our strategic planning. and how we're going to move our individual agencies and our programs forward. And community renewal also gives us an opportunity to move into economic development. This is critically important too, because now, as you know, they've started under the new administration, which for the most part has been very positive, but you know, everything's being looked at in that world of the Regional Economic Development Council. So if we can't show a multiplying factor that relates to economic development for the work that you're doing under community development, you're going to have a tougher time, you know? But it's not that difficult to be able to put these pieces together. Lisa, again, you know, showed us the way to do that. Economic development and housing aren't separate issues. You know, if you don't have a proper housing or a client base in your community, you can't have a viable store or a retail district. It just doesn't work. Same way, if you don't have a vital retail district within your community, you can't, it's not a good place to live. And you can't, and people that live in affordable housing have very little opportunity because they can't travel, they have to take public transportation. And to take public transportation to access your daily necessities is just an outrage. And especially in a city like New York. And it happens in too many communities. So the community renewal services are critical. I encourage everybody to take a look at the economic development stuff that HCR will not only allow, but encourage us to do. And again, I'm going to point you back to the Neighborhood Preservation Coalition, and those in, well, I guess I can't say I'm New York City Regional Office anymore, but those who we were networking with and making connections with yesterday, some in the city office, some in the Albany office, you know, that will help us and lead us along that line. The diverse community activities in a year, I'm not going to read the slide to you, you can read it yourself. These are the things, some of the things I've just referenced, whether it's home improvements under the any number of programs, LPA programs, weatherization, working in partnership with our utilities, Con Ed, National Grid, LIPA, P-SPAN, down here in the city or wherever your utilities may be. That's a very good source of leveraging money for home improvements. We also work closely with our Office for the Aging, New York City Department for the Aging, in that area to serve that most vulnerable population, seniors, especially seniors living in substandard housing, those that may be house rich, cash poor, you know, everybody knows the story. Tenant home ownership, new construction, 3,500 units, that's pretty impressive. That's pretty nice from a group of 147 groups statewide. And there's only a small percentage of them that actually do new construction. So that's a pretty big number. Counseling workshops, almost 14,000, you know. Now, I know that number is probably underreported because sometimes I feel we do that many in a year. But I know that's not quite true. It just feels that way, especially when you're working on Saturdays and evenings, you know. The foreclosure workshops, that meant 3,000. Well, it's 3,000 that our MPCs did, but our MPCs also worked in conjunction with HPD, Center for New York City Neighborhoods, NEDAP, HCR Subprime Foreclosure Prevention Program, and we did a lot of events that were outside of our normal course of business. Many of those events, I'm sure, through some of the MPCs, may not have made it to the report, and I think that number is probably much higher. Buildings managed, we don't do building management, but I know that those do it very well. Those are the type of groups we prefer to work with, publicly assisted buildings, when we do weatherization, or when we do any type of rehabilitation, we try to target publicly assisted, nonprofit-owned multifamily buildings. And those that manage those buildings within the MPCs are those that are doing that building management right. We heard a little bit about that yesterday, especially from our our guest of honor, and Denny Farrell. And I encourage you all to go to our YouTube page and catch his beautiful speech yesterday, speaking about the beginning of the program and about how to properly manage buildings and about the whole history of how, you know, where we were, where we went, where we are. You know, tune into that. He'll do a much better job on that than I can. Green building initiatives, that's rather a new thing, you know, that's floating around. That's 274 units, I'm going to assume. That may not seem like a high number, but I'll probably guarantee you those 274 units are either gold or platinum certified LEED units. And for LEED, if those who don't know, that's the highest level of energy efficiency that you can get in a building. It's a holistic approach to the building that's very expensive, very technical, very difficult to do. So if our MPCs have created 274 new units under the Green Building Initiative last year, I think that's a very impressive number. That might be one of the more impressive numbers on the sheet there today. But you get back to it again. You know, we like to count units, but evictions prevented, 11,000. You know, that's incredible. 11,000 families would be out on the street. We do quite a bit of this in Marlborough. We couldn't do it alone. We need to do it with our partners because you know what? To prevent evictions, you need more than counseling services. You need money. And not just money to pay for counselors. You know, you need money for those little bridge loans or, you know, those little grants, you know, to clear up some arrears, put people back on the right track in the budget, and credit counseling that they need so they don't fall back into this position again. It's an extraordinary record of achievement. And this is 1 year. This is 1 year. We've been doing this for 35 years, all right? I'll let you folks do the math on that. We are the provider of affordable housing, community development to New York State. That's no surprise to anybody. And we do the LPAs. I referenced that earlier. And that's it. I want to thank all of you for being here today. Enjoy your networking opportunities. Please come back to lunch for a very special presentation of the Luis R.C. Success Award today. I think you'll enjoy it and have a lot of fun and enjoy your workshop. Thank you, Jessica.